Okay, boys and goyim, this is Vince Burt coming to you again from the 11th Hour Remnant Messenger. I want you to see my special t-shirt, my special Church of Jesus Christ Christian emblem, which I'll talk about in a later video. I'm going to talk again today about the apostate church. Now, why am I continually harassing and berating and belittling the church of today? Well, the reason is that they are supposed to be the watchman on the wall. They're supposed to be the light on the hill. They're supposed to be guiding their flocks through the problems that we face today. And instead, they're giving us a nice, sickly, sweet message of prosperity for the most part, with no conviction, no repentance, no judgment, no carrying your cross. It's all about collecting the offering and the pat of cakes in the pew, as I mentioned in my other tape, and see you next week for my other prosperity sermon, which leads the flock to believe that they are inadequate and without any power because they're not getting the gifts that are promised by your preachers in their pulpits each and every Sunday. Today, I'm going to give you another message of admonition. This one I'm drawing from Bertrand Comparet, who is an icon in the Christian identity faith. He was on the Supreme Court of the state of California and also an identity preacher of quite intelligence, quite a bit of intelligence and renown. And with that, I'll start. And today you'll just have to bear with how we're going to deal with this. So I'll begin now. A few years ago, the then president of the National Council of Churches warned about what he called the danger that the great religious awakening, which is taking place in our country, might become fanatical and carried into our political and business life. Well, we see that it has. Perhaps this is a fair example of the leadership of the most of our churches. This is no leadership at all because the leaders have no faith in the religion to which they give the lip service to. For lack of faith in the Bible, they don't make it a force in national life. We see that every day. For lack of faith, they pay no attention to what 2 Peter 1:19 calls a more sure word of prophecy, whereunto ye do well that ye take heed, as unto a light that shineth in a dark place. To these blind leaders of the blind, all is darkness. They can't lead because they don't know where to go. They turn their backs on Yahweh and tell us to become more liberal. They want us to learn to get along with Russia, our enemies, and to abandon our opposition to Red China as they produce more and more of our goods and take more and more of our money and become stronger and stronger as we become weaker and weaker. Never were the words of prophecy and the laws of Yahweh more needed than today, with all civilization crumbling at the end of this age. Nearly half of the population of the earth has been under communism, Jewish occupation, and more Christians have been persecuted and murdered under communism, Jewish communism, than ever before in history as they become emboldened and more powerful financially throughout the earth. These Christians were treated to unimaginable torture. Even the Roman Empire at its greatest never treated Christians, murdering and torturing them the way these communist Jews have done. And if you go to my presentation at the AN Congress in 2000, where I talk about the war of wars, you will see how evil and corrupt and thoroughly deranged the Jew is when they were torturing Christians in Tsarist Russia and in Germany after the war, World War II. This evil race, the Jews, which originated communism, is also plotting the same hideous fate for Christians in all free countries, including the United States. At such time, what is the proper function of the Christian church and of all Christian ministers? Well, it is to waste their power in the fatuous effort to save some gin-soaked Skid Row bum, and it isn't their function to save Christian civilization? I think it is. Yahweh has clearly marked out their proper function as that of watchmen, which I said at the beginning of this, and they are to give warning of the approaching disaster. The church has failed on all fronts. Yahweh very clearly explained this to the prophet Ezekiel. This explanation is recorded in Ezekiel 33, 2 through 6. When I bring the sword upon a land, if the people of the land take a man of their coasts and set him for a watchman, when he seeth the sword come upon the land, he blows the trumpet, the shofar, and warns the people. Then whosoever heareth the sound of the trumpet and taketh not warning, if the sword come and take him away, his blood shall be upon his own head. But if the watchman sees the sword come and blows not the trumpet, and the people not be warned, if the sword comes and take any person from among them, he is taken away for his iniquity, but his blood will I require at the watchman's hand, and that watchman is you, preacher, teacher, pastor, evangelist. As far back as history goes, periods of apostasy of the churches have always led to judgments, judgments that were caused by that very apostasy. Yahweh is not to be mocked. The only source of our real strength to resist invasion without our corruption and revolution from within is our character. This is entirely dependent upon our knowledge of Yahweh and his laws. Without this knowledge, it doesn't matter what terrible new weapons we may have invented. We will be like nations of Southeast Asia, completely lacking in the strength of character to defend ourselves, strength of character to defend ourselves. In our own case, what nations will come to defend us then? No, none of them. No, really great civilizations of history really were overthrown by forces from outside. What I'm saying is no civilizations were overthrown by forces from outside. When these great nations fell, they had already become so rotten from within that they were easy pushovers for any invading system. This is the way Assyria, Babylon, Egypt, Greece, and Rome fell, and the truth be known, even Russia. And are we going to be the next on this list? Today, I condemn our major churches for two unpardonable sins. First, failure to speak truth, which is in the Bible. Second, speaking falsely in the name of doctrine. Yahweh has convicted them on both charges, has convicted you on both charges, as we can read in the Bible. Many of you know by terrible experience the price paid by those who dare to speak the truth on what are called controversial matters. There is the loss of former friends who now avoid us, calling us fanatics and even crackpots. There are slanderous rumors spread at first by those who know better, and then these rumors are repeated by those who have been deceived and who will not investigate to see for themselves whether the smear they spread is true or not. I can testify to that on my case over the last 15 years. Patriots have been expelled by their churches because those churches are too corrupted to speak the church or even allow the truth to be spoken to its members. Finally, the loss of business or loss of your job is a result of the anti-Christian pressure brought upon those who deal with you. The corrupted clergy lack the courage to face these matters. Far too many of the clergy have entered the ministry as a refuge from the competitive world they feared to face. There is no human activity which has such great need of a real man's man. Yet today only pitifully few dare tell the truth. come what may. 2,600 years ago, Yahweh spoke through the prophet Isaiah. It is recorded in Isaiah 56, 10 and 11. His watchmen are blind. They are all ignorant. They are all dumb dogs. They cannot bark. Sleeping, lying down, loving to slumber. Yes, they are greedy dogs, which can never have enough, and they are shepherds that cannot understand. They look all to their own way, everyone for their own gain. Note those two condemnations. First, they are ignorant, and second, everyone for his own gain. There is no excuse for their ignorance. Every clergyman has assumed the duty to know and to speak the word of Yahweh. The people rely on them for this, for where else can the people turn to for instructions on such things? The second condemnation is for false teaching, for the greater money profit to be had thereby. That is truly unpardonable. However, they do know where the money is to be made. Go into the bigger churches where the minister is paid very well for his services and show me just one of them where the unfortunate congregation hears anything but a smooth, syrupy sermon. They may sermonize in great indignation against the man who drinks an occasional glass of beer. Jimmy Swaggart comes to mind in that. When do they raise their voices against the Jewish influence which has driven Yahweh out of our schools? They may speak with thunderous condemnation of the man who is losing his soul by smoking a cigarette or cigar. When do they dare name the powerful race who has grown wealthy selling those cigarettes and cigars? When do they dare expose the anti-Christian money which controls most of our major political parties and steers both of them straight down the road to communism and at the end of our civilization? And as a side comment, I'd like to make a note that our friend Mitt Romney on the debate last night, when they were talking about national security issues, stood up proud and tall and shouted for all to hear that the first thing he's going to do when he's president is go genuflect to the goddamn Jews in Israel and tell them how we're going to support and protect them for the duration as they steal our money, as they try and destroy this country and kill the white race in general and Christians in particular. What a damn fool he is. Okay, now, they never mention these things because they know that the penalty for offending these goddamn Jews, Yahweh's enemies. They have less fear of offending Yahweh because Yahweh is not going to bring lightning bolts down on their church. How bold they are to denounce anyone who does tell the truth about these evils. Oh, they'll attack us in the media, they'll attack us in their congregations, but they won't go out and investigate for themselves the truth that we are telling you today. Yahweh knew it and prophesied it many years ago. In Micah 3, 5 through 7, he said this: "As for the prophets, the Eternal says, who lead my folk astray, and who cry all is well, if they get food to eat, and open war on any who deny them, it shall be night for you, and devoid of vision, so dark that you cannot divine. The sun shall set upon the prophets, daylight shall darken over them, till seers are ashamed and diviners blush in the morning, because no answer comes from God." This is Moffat's translation. Well, I want to tell you something. The God, Yahweh Father God, is not hearing the church today on any of the issues. He is not bowing to the prosperity message. He is not bowing to the syrupy sermons. He is not listening to your prayers. The heavens are as brass because America is under condemnation, especially the churches and the pastors and preachers and teachers and evangelists of today, because they teach false doctrine. They're liars. They're deceivers. They have no love of Yahweh God. They have no knowledge of Yahweh's ways, and they pander to the enemy who is seeking to destroy them. They are ignorant fools. You are ignorant fools. Isn't it true today, into which church you can go to today and expect to really hear the word of Yahweh? Look at the church page of your Sunday newspapers and read all the subjects listed for the Sunday sermons. What do you find? Book reviews, amateur psychiatry on how to relieve the strains of the day's tensions. There will be sermons on why we should abandon our principles in order to get along with the forces of evil without conflict, both at home and abroad. Not long ago, in one of the largest churches in San Diego, the announced sermon was "The Horse That Played Baseball." I have looked through the Bible in vain to find which prophet wrote on that subject. I'm amazed at the number of prophets who spoke Yahweh's condemnation of the ministers who have refused to teach his word because it always meets the opposition of the wicked. Instead, these ministers have taught false doctrine because it is always popular and profitable. This condemnation is written throughout the Bible, both in the Old and New Testaments, as we shall see. Few matters, if any, have received so much mention because this is the true root of all evil. If the churches never failed to teach Yahweh's truth, then other evils would never get a foothold. Therefore, the Bible prophesies the eternal doom. Therefore, the Bible prophesies the eternal doom of these false shepherds who leads Yahweh's flock astray. The church is willing to compromise with the enemy. The church is willing to compromise and tolerate all evil in the world, as long as it isn't in their church themselves. Among other things worth noting is this: often the Bible's condemnation is directed towards those who mislead the people into pacifism in the face of evil attempts to conquer the world, the very situation we face today. Today, the ministers tell us that we must neglect our defenses, think only of peace, and try to reason with the monsters who rule under the name of communism. We are told to settle everything by treaties with those whose openly stated policy is that they never make a treaty in good faith. They only sign treaties as a means to deceive their intended victims, and their record is that they never keep any treaty when they want to live up to the terms of it. Classic example of that are the goddamn Jews in Israel and their Talmud, the Kol Nidre. All vows are disavowed at the beginning of every year. Then also, if you read the Quran and the Muslims have no compunction about lying, cheating, stealing, as long as they're doing it to an infidel. Who is an infidel? An infidel is anyone who is not a practicing Islam, practicing the Muslim faith, and bowing down 5 times a day to the east, to Mecca. There cannot be any other result of this but the most terrible disaster for our nation, and we're seeing it crumbling right before our very eyes today. In Jeremiah 6:13 through 15, Yahweh has summed it up. From the least of them, even unto the greatest of them, every one is given to covetousness. And from the prophet, even unto the priest, every one dealeth falsely. They have healed also the hurt of my people, but slightly, saying, peace, peace, when there is no peace. Were they ashamed when they had committed the abomination? Nay, they were not at all ashamed, neither could they blush. Therefore they shall fall among them that fall. At the time that I visit them, they shall be cast down. That's you, preacher, teacher. Suppose all the churches had spoken the word of Yahweh. What if they had warned this nation in 1945 to keep out of the United Nations, that palace of strangers cursed by Yahweh? Suppose that they had read to their congregations what the Bible, both the Old and New Testaments, say against it. If they had reminded our Senate and had all of their congregations join in reminding the Senate that in 2 Corinthians 6:14 through 18, Yahweh warns us, be not unequally yoked together with unbelievers. For what fellowship hath righteousness with unrighteousness? And what communion hath light with darkness? And what concord hath Christ with Belial? or what part hath he that believeth with an infidel? Wherefore come out from among them, and be ye separate, saith Yahweh, and touch not the unclean thing, and I will receive you, and be a father to you, and ye shall be my sons and daughters, saying Yahweh Almighty. And separate means not only separate from the unbeliever, it means separate racially also. And with that, I'm going to close part 1 here, and we'll continue in part 2.